The sun was high in the sky, casting long shadows across the dusty arena. The air was thick with the scent of strange alien spices, mixed with the scent of sweat and anticipation. The sounds of chanting could be heard from the crowds that surrounded the grand structure. This was a place where warriors were tested, where the strong proved themselves, and where laws, as old as the stars themselves, governed every action. Among the crowd stood Alex, a young human mechanic, his mind racing. He never asked to be here. A quiet and humble man by nature, Alex had always preferred the company of tools and engines to that of warriors and fighters. But here he was, standing in the heart of an alien city, surrounded by strange beings and customs that he didn't understand. The challenge today was one that Alex had no business being a part of. He had been dragged into it by the very same alien that was now preparing to test his strength. Thronar, the massive and fierce warrior, stood at the other end of the arena, his eyes locked onto Alex. He was known throughout the galaxy for his prowess with a bow, and his reputation had made even the strongest warriors tremble. Alex's gaze followed Thronar's movements with nervous eyes. He had heard the stories of the Trial of the Arrow, a legendary challenge where the most skilled of warriors would take aim and fire an arrow at their opponent. The one who caught it would be bound by ancient law to face the warrior who fired it in a duel. But Alex hadn't planned on being the one to catch it. A strange mix of fear and curiosity filled him as he realized that he was the target. He wasn't a warrior, and he certainly wasn't prepared for what lay ahead. He had only come to the arena to watch, to learn more about the strange world he had found himself on. But somehow, the gods of fate had chosen him for something far greater. The alien horn sounded, signaling the start of the trial. Alex's heart pounded in his chest, and his hands trembled. He had no weapon, no armor, no experience. He had no idea what to do, but the crowd's roar and the fire in Thronar's eyes left him no choice. He had to act. Thronar, standing tall and proud, notched an arrow to his bow. His eyes narrowed as he focused on his target. With a swift and practiced motion, he released the arrow. It flew through the air like a streak of light, its trajectory flawless. To any other warrior, it would have been a mere formality. The arrow would strike its target, and the challenge would be over. But for Alex, time seemed to slow as the deadly projectile raced toward him. In that moment, something deep within Alex stirred. It wasn't fear, though he felt plenty of that. It was instinct, a feeling he couldn't explain. Without thinking, he stepped forward, his hands rising to meet the oncoming arrow. His fingers brushed the shaft just as it neared his chest. With a quick twist of his wrist, he grasped the arrow in mid-flight. The arena fell silent. The crowds gasped in disbelief. No one had expected this. Alex had caught the arrow. A human, untrained and unaware of the laws of the arena, had caught the arrow fired by one of the greatest warriors in the galaxy. The very thing that should have been a death sentence had become an incredible moment of fate. Thronar's eyes widened in shock. The laws of this ancient world were clear. If someone caught the arrow, it belonged to them forever. It wasn't just a trophy. It was a symbol, a challenge that could never be undone. Alex now owned Thronar's arrow, and by the law of the stars, the warrior was bound to him. For a moment, Alex stood frozen, still holding the arrow in his hands. His mind raced as the reality of what he had just done began to sink in. He had no idea what this meant, but he could feel the weight of the law pressing down on him. He couldn't just throw the arrow away. It had claimed him as much as he had claimed it. Thronar's voice boomed across the arena, his deep tone carrying an anger that filled the air. "You caught it," he growled, his eyes locking onto Alex with an intensity that made his skin crawl. "Now you must face me." Alex didn't know what to say. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He was just a mechanic, a man who had never held a weapon in his life. He had never fought anyone in a serious battle, and yet here he was, bound by law to face an alien warrior in a duel to the death. The crowd remained still, waiting for something to happen. The rules of the trial were absolute. If the arrow was caught, the challenger had to face the warrior who fired it. The duel would be a matter of honor, and the outcome would be decided in combat. It was a tradition older than any of the species present in the arena, and no one dared defy it. Alex's mind spun as he looked at Thronar, who was now stepping toward him with a slow, deliberate pace. There was no turning back. He had caught the arrow, and now he had to face the consequences. His life was no longer his own. It belonged to the arena, to the law of the arrow, and to the duel that was about to take place. In a haze of confusion and fear, Alex stumbled back, trying to make sense of the situation. He had always been good with machines, with fixing things that were broken, but this was different. There was no wrench or screwdriver to save him now. There was no escape. He had caught the arrow, and with it, he had sealed his fate. The battle for his life was about to begin. Alex's legs felt weak beneath him, and his hands trembled as he still held the arrow, unsure of what to do next. The crowd around him was silent, the weight of the moment hanging in the air like a thick fog. The law was clear as the blue sky above the arena. The arrow had been caught. He now owned it, and that meant he had to face Thronar in a duel. Alex turned slowly, his eyes seeking out the faces in the crowd, hoping for some sign, some hint of how to get out of this, but there was nothing. The faces staring back at him were alien, their expressions unreadable. They didn't care that Alex was just a mechanic. They didn't care that he wasn't a warrior. He had caught the arrow, and that made him a part of something far bigger than himself. Thronar was already approaching, his large figure cutting through the crowd like a shadow. Each step he took seemed to shake the ground beneath Alex's feet. Thronar's eyes were locked onto him with a look that could burn through steel. The alien warrior was not just angry. He was confused, insulted even, that a mere human had caught his arrow. Thronar had spent years perfecting his skill, his aim, and now he found himself bound by the law to face someone who wasn't even a fighter. As the alien warrior came closer, Alex took a deep breath. He was trying to keep his calm, but his heart was racing. What could he do? He had no weapons, no combat skills, and no desire to fight. He had spent his whole life fixing machines, not battling powerful alien warriors. His mind raced through every possible escape, but none seemed possible. Thronar stopped in front of him, his towering figure blocking out the sun. He was silent for a long moment, his gaze studying Alex as if trying to decide whether to laugh or to strike him down on the spot. Finally, Thronar spoke, his voice low and rough. "You are nothing," Thronar growled, his words cutting through the air like a knife. "You are a You don't belong here!" Alex wanted to protest, to tell him that he wasn't here to fight, but the words caught in his throat. There was no arguing with the law. He had caught the arrow, and now he was part of something he didn't understand, something far beyond his control. "Fight me," Thronar continued, his eyes narrowing, "or die." Alex looked at the arrow in his hand, the same arrow that had brought him into this impossible situation. The strange part of him that had reacted instinctively, catching it in midair, now seemed distant, like a dream he couldn't fully grasp. What had he done? How had he caught it? And what was he supposed to do now? His thoughts were interrupted as the ground beneath them began to shake, and the alien audience began to cheer and chant. Alex could feel the pressure building around him. The challenge was set. The duel would happen. There was no way out. But as Thronar turned to lead him toward the center of the arena, something in Alex shifted. He had always been good at fixing things, at solving problems. Maybe he didn't know how to fight, but he knew how to think. Maybe he could use that to his advantage. They arrived at the center of the arena, and Alex was struck by how vast it was. The sand beneath his feet felt hot, and the towering walls around him seemed to close in. The crowd cheered again, and Alex could feel their eyes on him, waiting for the duel to begin. Thronar stood on one side, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon, his muscles rippling with the strength of an experienced fighter. Alex, on the other hand, stood still, his mind racing. He had to think. He had to find a way to survive. As if on cue, the ground began to rumble, and an alien voice echoed through the arena. It was the signal for the duel to begin. Alex glanced around, looking for anything he could use. The arena was empty, except for sand and rocks, but his eyes caught a glint of something on the ground, a strange, metallic piece of equipment. It looked like a piece of technology, perhaps a part of the alien machinery. His heart skipped a beat. Maybe it was something he could use. Without thinking, Alex dashed forward, ignoring the thundering footsteps of Thronar behind him. He reached the object, his hands already working to pick it up. It was a small, round device, but it had several sharp edges that could serve as makeshift weapons. As Alex picked it up, he felt something click inside of him. He wasn't a warrior, but he was a problem solver. He wasn't going to win by strength or skill, but maybe he could win by being smart. Maybe he could use his knowledge of machines and technology to his advantage. Thronar's voice rang out, full of rage. "What are you doing, human?" Alex turned around, holding the strange device in his hand. "I'm not a fighter," he said, his voice calm but firm. "But I can think." "I can fix things," Thronar growled in response, charging at Alex with a speed that was impossible to match. But Alex wasn't trying to outrun him. He didn't need to. Instead, he hurled the device toward Thronar with all his might. The device flew through the air, making a strange humming noise as it spun. Thronar raised his arm to block it, but the device made contact with his weapon, jamming it for a split second. That was enough for Alex. He lunged forward, grabbing hold of Thronar's weapon and twisting it out of his grasp. The alien warrior staggered back in shock. For a brief moment, he looked at Alex with disbelief. Alex had taken his weapon. He had used his brain, not his strength, to win the first round. But Alex knew the battle wasn't over. The arena was still filled with dangers, and Thronar was far from finished. However, Alex had learned something important. It wasn't always about fighting with your fists. Sometimes it was about finding a way to outsmart your opponent. As Alex stood there, holding the weapon, he felt a surge of adrenaline. He wasn't just a mechanic anymore. He was a fighter, one who would use his mind to survive, no matter what. Thronar, still stunned by Alex's move, slowly regained his composure. His eyes locked onto Alex with renewed fury. The duel was far from over, but Alex had proven one thing. He wasn't going down without a fight. The dust swirled in the air as Alex stood facing Thronar, the alien warrior's eyes burning with rage. The weapon Alex had taken from him still hummed in his hands, and he could feel its weight, both physical and symbolic. For a brief moment, it seemed like the crowd held its breath. Alex was no longer just the mechanic who had accidentally caught the arrow. He was a participant in something ancient, something much bigger than himself. Thronar, however, wasn't ready to back down. His pride had been wounded, and there was no way he would let a human humiliate him in front of the crowd. His large, muscular frame seemed to grow larger with every step as he advanced toward Alex. The air around them crackled with tension, the anticipation of battle thick in the air. Alex's heart pounded in his chest, but he did his best to keep his mind clear. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a battle for his honor, his dignity, and his place in a world where he didn't belong. He gripped the alien weapon tighter, his eyes locked on Thronar, as the warrior closed the distance between them. "You may have disarmed me," Thronar growled, his voice low and threatening, "but you will never defeat me. You're nothing but a human with no skill in combat." Alex didn't respond. He had no words left. The time for talking was over. He could hear the murmurs of the crowd, but their voices seemed distant, muffled by the pounding in his ears. His only focus was Thronar, and the powerful warrior that now towered over him. Thronar lunged forward with lightning speed, his large hand reaching for the weapon that Alex held. Alex instinctively stepped back, his body moving on its own as he dodged the powerful grasp. The alien warrior's fingers missed him by mere inches, but Alex knew he couldn't keep dodging forever. He needed to act. He needed to do something. His mind raced as he remembered his training, the few days of lessons Sira had given him. They hadn't taught him how to fight like a warrior, but they had taught him how to think, how to react. Alex wasn't going to outmuscle Thronar. He wasn't going to match him in raw strength, but he could use his quick thinking, his understanding of machines, to outsmart him. Thronar lunged again, his arm outstretched, but Alex was ready this time. He dropped to the ground in a low roll, barely escaping the warrior's grasp. As he rolled, he spotted something, an exposed panel on the ground beneath Thronar. It was small, barely visible, but Alex could see the faint glow of energy beneath it. Without thinking, Alex dove forward, slamming the weapon into the panel. The ground beneath them shook as a low hum vibrated through the arena. Thronar's eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment, the warrior froze, his stance faltering. The ground beneath them suddenly erupted in sparks as the alien technology was triggered. Thronar's weapon began to malfunction, its energy surging and flickering erratically. The once powerful weapon became unstable, and Thronar's confident expression turned into one of frustration. The malfunctioning weapon sparked in his hands, making it impossible for him to keep his grip on it. Alex didn't wait for Thronar to recover. He surged forward, using the momentum of his roll to propel himself into action. In a blur of motion, he reached for Thronar's arm, yanking it away from the malfunctioning weapon. Thronar grunted in surprise, but Alex held on, twisting his body to use the warrior's own force against him. Thronar staggered backward, his balance broken by Alex's unexpected move. It wasn't much, but it was enough to throw the warrior off. Alex's heart raced as he took advantage of the opening, pushing Thronar back with everything he had. The crowd's cheers and shouts became a blur as Alex concentrated, trying to keep his focus. The warrior was still dangerous, but Alex had just bought himself some time. Thronar growled in frustration, his eyes narrowing with rage. "You may be clever, human, but you will never defeat me in battle." Alex didn't answer. He didn't have time for words. Instead, he moved quickly, using the broken weapon to create distance between himself and Thronar. The malfunctioning weapon was useless now, but it was enough to keep the alien warrior at bay. Alex knew he couldn't keep this up forever. Thronar would regain his strength, and Alex's advantage would disappear. But for now, Alex had something that Thronar didn't. Time. Thronar's growl echoed through the arena as he adjusted his stance. His hands were still empty, his weapon now malfunctioning beyond repair. For the first time in the duel, he seemed unsure of himself. He took a step back, analyzing Alex with a new level of respect. He had underestimated the human, thinking that strength alone would be enough to defeat him. But Alex wasn't using strength. He was using his mind, his instincts, and his knowledge of technology to outmaneuver the alien warrior. "Not bad," Thronar muttered, his voice filled with grudging respect. "You've made me see that you're more than just a mechanic, but it won't be enough." Alex's heart skipped a beat as he realized that the duel wasn't over. Thronar was still a warrior, and the laws of the arena demanded a victor. He couldn't just win by outsmarting his opponent. He had to face Thronar in a true battle, a battle that would decide their fates. As the two warriors stood facing each other, Alex took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He wasn't a fighter. He had never wanted to be part of this world, but now that he was here, he had no choice but to survive. He wasn't just fighting for his life. He was fighting for something bigger, for the chance to prove that even a mechanic from a far-off world could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest warriors in the galaxy. The fight was far from over. But Alex had learned one thing. He wasn't going down without a fight. The air around Alex felt heavier as the duel stretched on. His body ached, his muscles sore from the constant movement, but his mind remained sharp. Every instinct he had honed over years of working with machines and tools was now being applied in a battle for his life. It was a strange feeling. He was no longer just a mechanic, a man who fixed broken things. He was someone who had to survive, and every move he made was a matter of life or death. Thronar was still recovering from the momentary malfunction of his weapon. His eyes were filled with fury, but there was something else there too. Respect. Alex had proven that he wasn't just a helpless human. He had the cunning and the will to fight. That made Thronar all the more dangerous. A warrior like him was never beaten easily, and Alex knew he had to keep his wits sharp if he wanted to make it out of this alive. Thronar took a deep breath, his large chest rising and falling as he readied himself. The alien warrior's hands were now empty, but that didn't make him any less formidable. His strength, speed, and skill were still very much intact, and Alex knew it was only a matter of time before Thronar came at him again. The malfunctioning weapon was a temporary setback, but Thronar would soon find a way to regain his advantage. Enough of this, Thronar muttered under his breath, his eyes narrowing as he charged forward once again. Alex didn't have time to think. He reacted instinctively, dodging to the side as Thronar lunged at him. The alien's massive form moved with surprising speed, but Alex was faster. He had learned to rely on his agility, using his quick reflexes to avoid the brutal blows aimed at him. It wasn't strength that would win this fight. It was his ability to outthink and outmaneuver Thronar. The ground beneath them seemed to shake as they moved through the arena, their movements becoming a blur of motion. Alex's mind raced, calculating every move, every action. He could feel the heat of Thronar's breath on his skin as the alien warrior closed the gap between them. For a brief moment, Alex's heart skipped a beat. It was then that he realized just how close he was to losing. But that realization didn't freeze him. It fueled him. Thronar swung his arm at Alex, aiming a powerful strike that would have sent most opponents flying. But Alex ducked low, feeling the rush of air as the blow missed by inches. He twisted his body, sliding underneath Thronar's arm and quickly moving to the side. The alien's momentum carried him forward, and Alex saw his chance. In a quick, fluid motion, Alex grabbed a piece of loose debris from the arena floor. It was sharp, jagged, a perfect makeshift weapon. He didn't hesitate. He hurled it toward Thronar, the sharp edge aiming directly for the warrior's exposed side. Thronar barely had time to react. The debris struck him, grazing his arm. The pain caused Thronar to stagger, but it wasn't enough to slow him down for long. Alex took a step back, his heart hammering in his chest. He could feel his energy beginning to drain, but he couldn't let up. Not now. He couldn't give Thronar a moment to recover. Thronar growled, his anger rising as he clutched his injured arm. "You think this will stop me?" he snarled, his voice thick with fury. "You cannot defeat me, human. I am a warrior." Alex didn't respond. There was no need to argue. Thronar was a warrior. There was no denying that. But Alex had something Thronar didn't: the ability to think, to adapt, to fight in a way that was beyond brute strength. And now, that difference was becoming clearer. Thronar charged again, faster this time, his steps heavy with purpose. Alex's eyes tracked the alien warrior's movements, his mind calculating. Thronar was determined. But Alex knew he had only one chance to end this. It wasn't strength that would win. It was timing, precision. As Thronar lunged forward, Alex dove to the side once more, using the momentum of his roll to propel himself behind the alien warrior. The move was quick, almost instinctual. Thronar's massive body crashed into the sand, and in that split second, Alex saw the opening he had been waiting for. Thronar's back was exposed, vulnerable. Alex wasted no time. He reached forward, grabbing a piece of debris that had been discarded earlier in the fight. It was long and narrow, like a spear. With all the force he could muster, Alex drove it forward, aiming for the vulnerable area between Thronar's armor. The warrior grunted in pain as the makeshift spear found its mark, piercing the alien's side. Thronar staggered backward, his breath coming in heavy gasps. Blood, black and thick, dripped from the wound as he stumbled away from Alex. The warrior's eyes widened in shock as he looked at Alex, who stood with the makeshift spear still in his hands, his body shaking with the effort. "Why?" Thronar asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "You had me." "You could have killed me. Why spare me?" Alex didn't answer immediately. His chest heaved with exhaustion, and for a moment he wasn't sure he could speak. But then he took a deep breath and finally replied. "Because that's not who I am," he said, his voice steady despite the exhaustion. "I'm not here to kill. I'm here to survive, but I won't become like you." Thronar looked at him, his eyes narrowing as he took a step back. The warrior seemed to consider Alex's words for a long moment. The arena was silent as the two of them stood, staring at one another. Man and warrior, both changed by this fight. Finally, Thronar let out a deep sigh, his body trembling from the pain. He lowered his head, acknowledging Alex's victory. "You've won," Thronar said, his voice softer now, filled with reluctant respect. "You've proven that you're more than just a mechanic. You are a warrior in your own right." Alex stood there, still holding the spear, his heart racing. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected Thronar to give up. But here they were. The fight was over, and Alex had won. The crowd erupted in cheers, the sound deafening as they acknowledged Alex's victory. The alien warriors, the spectators from across the galaxy, had witnessed something incredible. A human outsmarting and outlasting one of the most feared warriors in the universe. Alex's legs felt like they might give out beneath him, but he stood tall, his heart still pounding. He had survived, not just by luck, but by using his mind, his will, and his heart. He had proven that even a mechanic from a far-off world could stand up to the greatest warriors in the galaxy. As the dust settled, Alex looked at Thronar, who was now kneeling before him, defeated, but not broken. For the first time, Alex realized that he hadn't just won the duel. He had earned the respect of a warrior, a respect that would change everything. The battle was over, but Alex's journey had only just begun.